Rain poured relentlessly over the quiet suburban street, thunder rumbling like distant memories of war. Jack Miller, a single dad and retired Army medic, was fixing the old pickup truck outside his small rental home when two little girls, no older than 7, came running down the road, barefoot, drenched, crying and screaming for help. Their pink dresses clung to their tiny frames, and panic flickered in their wide blue eyes.
"Mister, please, our mom's dying,"
one of them cried, her voice trembling with terror. Jack froze. He dropped his wrench instantly and sprinted toward them, instincts taking over. Even after years away from the battlefield, that old surge of adrenaline, sharp, cold, and commanding, flooded through him again. He didn't know who they were or where they came from, but he could see the desperation and raw fear in their little faces. Without a second thought, he followed them. The girls led him across the street to a luxurious mansion, the kind of place Jack usually saw from afar and never thought he'd enter. As he burst through the front door, the scent of perfume mixed with the metallic tang of blood hit him. A woman lay sprawled on the marble floor near the staircase, one hand clutching her abdomen, the other trembling as she tried to reach for her phone. Her pale face told him everything. She was losing consciousness fast. Jack knelt beside her, immediately checking her pulse. Weak, her breathing was shallow, irregular. He noticed a deep cut along her side. She must have slipped and landed on something sharp. But it wasn't just the injury. It was shock. If he didn't act now, she wouldn't make it until the ambulance arrived. His hands moved with practiced precision. Years of field trauma came flooding back, the countless times he'd stopped bleeding, stabilized soldiers, or revived lives in dust-covered tents under gunfire. He tore his flannel shirt, pressing it against her wound to stop the bleeding. He found the source, an open laceration just below the ribs, and applied pressure, talking softly to calm her down even though she barely heard him. "Stay with me," he murmured. "You're gonna be fine." The twins stood frozen nearby, holding each other and sobbing. Jack turned his head slightly, giving them a steady, reassuring look. "It's okay, girls. I've got her." Minutes felt like hours, until the sound of sirens pierced through the storm. When the paramedics arrived, they found Jack kneeling beside the woman, his hands stained red but steady as a rock, keeping her alive. One of them blinked in surprise. "Who's the responder?" Jack stood exhausted, drenched in rain and sweat. "Just a neighbor," he said simply. "I used to be a medic." They took the woman, identified later as Emily Carter, CEO of a major tech company, away. The twins clung to Jack's leg, refusing to let go until he promised to come see their mom at the hospital. And when the ambulance doors closed, something inside Jack stirred, a feeling he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Later that night, Jack sat in his small living room with his daughter, Lily, a quiet 10-year-old who'd been his entire world since his wife died 6 years ago. She listened intently as he told her what happened. "Dad," she said softly, "you're a hero." He smiled faintly. "Heroes are just people who do what needs to be done, sweetheart." But as he looked out the window toward the mansion, he couldn't shake the image of the woman's pale face and the fear in her daughter's eyes. The next morning, there was a knock at his door. When Jack opened it, he was stunned. Standing there was a man in a black suit, Emily's assistant, holding an envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "Mr. Miller, thank you for saving my life. The doctors said I would have died without your intervention. Please visit me at St. Mary's Hospital. My daughters won't stop asking about you." When Jack arrived, Emily looked weak but radiant in her hospital bed. The twins jumped up the moment they saw him, wrapping their tiny arms around his neck. Emily's eyes welled up. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You did what trained professionals could have failed to do." Jack shook his head humbly. "Just did what anyone should." But not everyone would have done what he did, and Emily knew it. As days passed, she learned more about him. A decorated veteran, a single father, a man who had seen too much loss yet still carried kindness like armor. She invited him and Lily over one evening after her recovery, wanting her girls, Sophie and Sarah, to meet them properly. The meeting turned into something more. Emily found herself drawn to Jack's quiet strength, his honesty, the way he treated everyone, especially her daughters, with gentle respect. He never boasted about his past, but his actions spoke louder than any title or medal could. Meanwhile, Lily finally had friends her age. The house filled with laughter again, something both families had forgotten the sound of. But life wasn't done testing them. One day during a company event, Emily fainted unexpectedly. Panic erupted. Jack rushed forward, instinctively catching her before she hit the ground. He checked her pulse. It was erratic. Without hesitating, he laid her down, loosened her collar, and began emergency CPR. The guests froze, watching the calm, steady hands of a man who'd done this too many times before. "Someone call an ambulance?" he barked, his voice commanding and sharp. Time seemed to stop. Each compression echoed through the silent hall until finally Emily gasped, air rushing back into her lungs. The room broke into stunned applause as medics arrived. One of Emily's board members whispered, "Who is that man?" "Her savior," the assistant murmured. Afterward, when Emily regained consciousness in the hospital, she saw Jack sitting quietly beside her bed, eyes filled with worry. "You saved me again," she said weakly. He smiled faintly. "Wiss, I just can't help it." She reached for his hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You've done more for me and my girls than anyone ever has." "Why, Jack? You barely know us." He looked away for a moment, his jaw tightening. "Because I know what it's like to lose someone and wish I'd done more. No one should feel that helpless." That moment changed everything. Over the following weeks, Emily recovered, but her gratitude turned into something deeper, a bond forged not out of pity, but out of shared strength and healing. Jack helped her daughters learn self-defense, taught them resilience, while Emily helped Lily with her studies and treated her like one of her own. Slowly, the broken pieces of two different lives started fitting together in unexpected ways. When the press eventually found out that the mysterious man who'd saved the CEO twice was a war veteran and single father, stories spread everywhere. But Jack didn't care for attention. All he wanted was peace, and maybe, for once, a little happiness. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily invited Jack and Lily to the garden for dinner. The twins danced around, laughing, their joy contagious. Emily looked at Jack, her voice soft. "You came into our lives when everything was falling apart. You gave us something I thought we'd lost, hope." Jack smiled, the faintest glimmer of emotion in his eyes. "Funny, you gave me the same thing." As the twilight deepened, the four children played together under the golden sky. Emily reached out, taking Jack's hand. For the first time in years, both of them felt like the world was finally quiet, safe, whole. Sometimes, the universe doesn't send you what you want. It sends you what you need. For Emily and Jack, that day in the rain wasn't a coincidence. It was fate's way of stitching two broken lives together with threads of kindness, courage, and love. And though neither of them planned for it, that one moment of selfless action changed everything. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share it with someone who believes in humanity's goodness. Subscribe to the channel to keep spreading light, love, and the power of second chances.